Right, everyone. So, according to a new article from mpfirst.com, multiple game studios have already shut down in 2025. So, here's the report. Following a tumultuous 2024 that saw multiple studios lay off employees and even shut down entirely, the start of 2025 isn't faring any better, as three studios have already announced they are closing up shop permanently. These studios affected include Toadman Interactive, Counterplay Games, and Free Jam. So, the three are Toad Man Interactive, Counterplay Games, and Free Jam. This is really, really sad. Anytime you see these places go under, it's sad. And hopefully the gaming industry can kind of figure this thing out because it seems like each year it's getting worse and worse. All right. So Nintendo lawyer talked about their approach on piracy and emulation. So this is from IGN. Now, a patent lawyer representing Nintendo has lifted the lid on the company's approach to piracy and emulation and discussed how the propagation of emulators could lead to software privacy. In a report from DFMago Gamer via VGC at Tokyo Esports Festa 2025, intellectual property managers from Capcom, Sega, and Nintendo gathered to discuss the laws designed to protect companies' intellectual property. Speaking for Nintendo was a patent attorney and assistant manager of the intellectual property division, Koji Nishira. In a translation by Automation, he explained, to begin with, are emulators illegal or not? This is a point often debated. While you can't immediately claim that an emulator is illegal in itself, it can become illegal depending on how it's used. Nashura explained further that if an emulator copies a program from the game it is running, it may constitute copyright infringement, and this is also the case if the emulator can disable a console's security mechanisms. This is largely down to Japan's Unfair Competition Prevention Act, or UCPA, which is only enforceable in Japan itself. This makes it more difficult for Nintendo to pursue legal action overseas. The example given in a slide during Tokyo Esports Festa talk was the Nintendo DS R4 card, which allows users the cartridge to circumvent and run backed up or pirated games on a single cartridge. Ultimately, after Nintendo and 50 other software manufacturers cried out about the R4, Nintendo won a ruling that the manufacturers and resellers violated the UCPA, effectively outlawing sales of the R4 in 2009. Nensura further explained that tools that allow users to download pirated software with an emulator or piece of software would also constitute copyright law infringement, named reach apps in Japanese law. These third-party tools, like the 3D's infamous Free Shop or third-party app installer Tinfoil for Switch, may also violate copyright laws. In its Yuzu lawsuit, Nintendo claimed that The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom was pirated 1 million times. Specifically, filing claimed that Yuzu's Patreon page allowed its developers to earn $30,000 per month by providing subscribers with daily updates, early access, and special unreleased features to games like Tears of the Kingdom. Okay, so I thought this was a pretty interesting read and kind of a look at how Nintendo feels about this. And I think really when when you talk about this issue, you have to break down what we're talking about, right? Because I would never say that any form of so if a new game comes out for Steam or a new game comes out for Xbox or PlayStation or any of the Nintendo products, you know, pirating that or using an emulator in some way for that when you haven't purchased a disc or bought it online through legal means, that's unacceptable. But when we're talking about emulators, what we're talking about is Nintendo 64, Nintendo DS, Game Boy, all of these really old games. And I think part of the problem is that what these companies do is, they have, especially Nintendo, I think they're probably the most egregious in this case, is you have this giant backlog of games that people just can't even play anymore. Whether it's they don't have the right systems, like they don't have a Nintendo 64, they don't have a Game Boy Advance, they don't have a DS, or they don't have the specific actual games because maybe their game broke, like because it's so old. That's a completely different story. So to me, this you talk about with Nintendo, games and emulation and piracy and stuff like that. This is the easiest fix in the world if you're Nintendo. They're talking about how much money they lost from, what was it, the Zelda game, right? And I don't know if that's going to be a perfect case, but for all those older games that I'm sure they've alleged in the past that they've lost money on, all you have to do is release them on any, release them on the Nintendo Switch, release them on anything. And guess what? People will buy them and they won't emulate them and they won't pirate them because they're like, okay, You're giving me an easy way just to get this game. And I think I speak for most people like that. At least that's how I feel. And I feel the same way about games with the Xbox or the PS2. Obviously, I still have an Xbox original, so you could still play those. But, it's just one of those things where if you have these generations of consoles and you don't allow your new consoles to still play those games that we used to play, it's a little bit unfair in a way. You talk about like, okay, so somebody bought this and now they can only play it on that console. But as the years go on and these things get more expensive, they're harder to find, all of those things, emulation is the only way forward unless you make them for your current console. And I would pay again. Like I said, if you told me if Xbox came out today and said we're going to produce, every original Xbox game and put it on the store, they do have some, but if they said we're putting all of them onto the store, I'd do a lot of buying. I mean, I'd get them on the Xbox. I'd be perfectly happy with it. So put in the comment section below what you think. I'm not, a lawyer, so I can't really speak to all the legalese of this stuff, but I thought this was just an interesting article and a look at, what they're discussing. So thank you all for watching. All right, everyone. So we have a major Marvel Rivals announcement. So this is from IGN. NetEase Games is telling Marvel Rivals players that a new hero will launch every month and a half as an additional seasons roll out. The studio's creative director, Guangjian Chen, clarified the team's post-launch plans during an interview with Metro. He doesn't mince words, promising to release a playable character every half season that equals out to at least one new hero each month and a half, or roughly every 6 weeks. So this is what Chen said. Every season, we'll be rolling out fresh seasonal stories, new maps, and new heroes. We'll actually be breaking down each season into two halves, Chen said. The length of one season is 3 months, and for each half of the season, we will introduce a new hero. We just eventually want to continue to enhance the experience and, keep everyone excited in our community. So look, I can't believe Marvel Rivals. I really can't. It is a perfect, you know, success story that should be copy and pasted throughout all of the AAA gaming studios when it comes to how to appeal to a fan base. Marvel Rivals is not reinventing the wheel. They're doing something very simple. People like Marvel, people like the Marvel characters. How do we make sure that the people, when they're playing with these Marvel characters, they feel like they're playing with the Marvel characters? And then how do we make modes that they want to play in? It's very simple. And then you just keep doing that formula, copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste, and everyone's going to love it. It's simple, but it's fantastic. And it's not, a slap in the face to the people playing the game. People who love Marvel get to play as their favorite characters. That's awesome. I'm somebody who doesn't even really like this style of game, and I had fun playing the game. I've never been one of these big fans of a game like this. But the fact that I know every time I play it, wait a minute, I could actually play Marvel like a Marvel character. Whatever character I pick, it's going to feel like I'm using them. It's just awesome. And I hope they continue to succeed, because then maybe some of these other companies will continue to go. Let's take the DC side of things, right? Think about what you had with the Batman series. Why did Batman in the Arkham games succeed so much? Oh, it's because of their great story. Sure, but why was it a great story? Because when you played those games, you felt like you were Batman. You felt like you were Batman. You had all of his gadgets. You could do all of this different stuff just like Batman, and that made it awesome. You were immersed into it. I love everything about this, and I hope people are taking notes on this to say, you know what, maybe instead of doing studies about player retention or doing studies about this and that, why don't we just make a good game and the game that we're promising to people, and then people are going to end up playing it. So thank you all for watching. Right, everyone. So an article in the Gamer is titled 2025 might finally be Xbox's year. So we're going to read a small bit of it. It's not all doom and gloom, though. It might not seem like it right now, and many have previously expressed hopes that Xbox would stage a major comeback over the last few years, only to be disappointed. But I think 2025 might actually be Xbox's year. Last year, I wrote that my Xbox year in review reminded me that I basically haven't touched my Xbox at all in 2024. That changed with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which is arguably Xbox's first great exclusive in a long time. I'd even go as far as to say that I might have had made my game of the year list if it hadn't been released in December. Maybe it would, even have been in contention at the big game award shows. It's already been nominated a few times at the Dice Awards now for the first time. I'm actually making heavy use of my Xbox and happy to do so. Add to that the fact that Xbox actually did have some big wins in the last bit of the year. While Hellblade 2 didn't go over very well, Stalker 2 and Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, while both ridden with bugs at release, turned out to be hits with fans, and the start of 2025 will bring Avowed in February, which is shaping up to be a good one. I generally trust Obsidian to not make terrible games. We'll also be getting Fable and South of Midnight. These are just the games slated for this year, though. Other games that we saw at last year's Xbox Game Showcase are also very exciting. Perfect Dark, anyone, but aren't confirmed to be exclusives. So this is obviously an interesting point, right? Because Xbox, it is true. I have an Xbox. I'm looking at it right now. Uh, it is one of those things that what's really the point of it right now? There aren't these great games. I mean, Game Pass rocks. That's true. But the point is, why would you not buy a PlayStation? Why not play on Steam? What is it that is tying you to the Xbox? And I always go back to the era that I played the Xbox the most, which is the 360 era. And what made the 360 era so great was the games that were on it. Now, I'm hoping we're getting to a place now, and it seems like in a way we are, where exclusives are getting less and less of uh, an emphasis put on them, right? Like back in the day, exclusives were a big deal. Okay, Xbox, you had Halo and you had Gears of War and all these things, and it looks like Xbox is kind of moving away from that. But that doesn't change the fact that Xbox can still make itself a really, needed console if they do deliver on what the 360 had, which are those good games. And maybe you just have a few exclusives, right? So maybe you have one or two exclusives that are just so good that you got to buy the Xbox. That's the reason why you got to have it. But just make good games. That's the key here. That's the comeback. It's funny when you get down and you look at all this stuff, when you have these really intelligent, smart people who work at these companies who are trying to figure out how do we make this work, and they're doing all these things. It's simple, right? It's not that hard. What do you have to do to make this work? Well, you just got to deliver good games to people. When Gears of War and Halo and Battlefield and Call of Duty on the 360 era, that made me want to have a 360. And some of those games were on two consoles, but because Halo was just on Xbox or Gears of War was just on Xbox, I was playing on the Xbox. And I love those games. And there just aren't many games right now that draw me into an Xbox on that same level. There just aren't. That's the bottom line. So thank you all for watching. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Is Xbox done? Is there a chance here? Put it in the comment section below. All right, everyone. So in the Switch 2 release trailer, we got a hint at a game that will be coming to the Switch. We briefly got to look at this is from IGN. We briefly got to look at some Mario Kart gameplay on the Nintendo Switch 2. That's almost certainly not Mario Kart 8 Deluxe or any other Mario Kart we've ever seen. The track is completely unfamiliar for one, but the kart themselves looks totally different too, and seem to be in slightly different style to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So unless this is one heck of a remake slash remaster, the fabled Mario Kart 9 or whatever they call it looks to finally be happening. The footage itself shows a roster of Mario Kart racers Mario, Luigi, Yoshi, Peach, Bowser, Toad, DK, Daisy, and if you squint, what looks like Wario, Baby Mario, and Baby Luigi, Koopa, and a handful of others I'm sure eagle eyed fans will pick out as they dissect the footage. They are cruising down a desert highway course we've never seen before, complete with a Yoshi's Diner on the side of the course. NPC cars and trucks driving in the opposite direction, and an audience of cheering toads. The carts themselves are also different from what we were used to in 8 Deluxe, and seem to be a little more compact and roundish, though it's hard to tell. Unfortunately, we don't know much about what this new Mario Kart is or how it plays. Okay, so we're going to find out more about this at the direct reveal, most likely. There's going to be a lot of information as this comes out, and I just can't wait. This is the key with the Switch, and Nintendo gets this, right? Nintendo, I think, gets this better than PlayStation. I think they get this better than Xbox, is that it's the games that matter. Nintendo's a perfect example, right? Because in terms of, functionality, right? Nintendo never has the highest power console, right? They never have the console that can run the best graphics or run it the quickest, but they always have their games that are just so good, right? Their IPs are so strong and they're so good that it can basically have an entire console support it, right? An entire console supported by the strength of their IPs. That's how it used to be. And sadly, for some of this stuff, we're not getting it as much. But Mario Kart, hearing that this will probably, my guess, be like a release thing because that's why they're showing it with it. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm just guessing on that. But that would be huge. You got to get as many of those big games out early, and then you continue to deliver as the life cycle goes on. But Nintendo Switch, we've been waiting months for this. Actually, we've been waiting years for it, but really months since I've really been following all these leaks, and it's finally here, and I cannot wait to play this thing.